Hello, living environment world. This is Miss Averas again, and I am here to help you once more with the June 2019 Living Environment Regents exam. So here what I have here is part one. It's called Introduction to Living Environment Questions. Basically, questions pertaining to living things, basically trying to understand the processes of life, that all living things reproduce, all living things have DNA, all living things metabolize, all living things pass down their DNA hereditary information from one generation to the next. So I've put together a series of questions that I feel come up a lot on the Regents. So let's get started with part one. So here we have a question that says, well, here, first of all, the first thing that you want to make sure you do is read the directions all the way from the top. And then you want to take a look at what you're looking at. What are the science lab supplies that you're looking at? What's happening here? So before reading any questions, we know that this is some kind of experiment on test tubes with a test tube stopper. We have a little snail here, a little guy. We then have a plant, and here it asks, well, here we have 4 different tubes. So which compound that directly provides energy in living cells is being produced in every tube where cellular respiration is occurring? So whenever you see the word energy, you have to associate it with ATP. And also ATP is made in the mitochondria. Now I apologize for this horrendous. I don't have my digital pen right now. But you should know that the organelle that, let me see if I can draw it better. The organelle that makes ATP energy is usually going to look like this. Like the mitochondria. The mitochondria. This is an organelle found in the cell. Mitochondria makes energy, and that energy is called ATP, and it's made in the mitochondria. Okay, so living things, what makes you living and me living and gives you and the fact that you're moving and doing all of these things and breathing and jumping and exercising and your cells are metabolizing is because of ATP being made in the mitochondria. Okay. So let's go to the next question. Okay, base your answer to the following question on the diagram below, which represents a metabolic process, and on your knowledge of biology. So here we definitely have some kind of equation. Now in chemistry is basically going to be all the equations, but here they simplify it. And they basically want to make sure you know about enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that help with chemical, chemical reactions. And these chemical reactions it can be anything. And for this particular test, it could be cellular respiration, or it could be photosynthesis, or protein synthesis. So here we have these little building blocks. We want to call them building blocks. And when you add them all up, you get a starch. So we build something, we synthesize something. Synthesize means to make. Digest means to break. So here we made something. We took these building blocks and made starch, probably through photosynthesis. Now they're asking, what is X? Whenever you see something on top of an arrow, it's usually an enzyme. An enzyme helps with chemical reactions to speed them up, to make it faster. And they have a lock and key method. So an X on the arrow is an enzyme. And this special little guy made a starch. Okay, next question. Which row in the chart below contains correct information concerning synthesis? Remember, synthesis is to make, to take something simple and make it into something more complex. So let's see what our list is here. Now, I apologize if I don't explain certain things, but the test is on Tuesday, June 18th, Tuesday afternoon exam. Please subscribe to my channel so that you can get the videos that I'm going to upload tonight. This should help you significantly for Tuesday's test. Subscribe to my channel so that you can get all the other videos. Now this particular, let me just do full screen. This particular set of questions should take me about 30 minutes to do. The other questions that I'm going to do are probably going to be a lot shorter. But yeah, so let's just keep going. Enough talking on my end. So, building blocks means what you need to add, just like this formula, to get a more complex molecule. So here, they're trying to see which one is the correct one. Glucose, which is sugar. Does that make DNA? Absolutely not. Actual glucose molecules? No way. This is wrong. Glucose does not make DNA. DNA is made of a phosphate, a sugar, and a nitrogenous base. Again, I am so sorry that I can't spell things out because I don't have my digital pen with me. I have relocated temporarily to my mom's house up in Harlem. That's why you hear the all this construction noise. I'm by the 1 train, and I don't have my digital pen connected to this beautiful computer that my brother owns. Let's keep going. Simple sugars. Do simple sugars make proteins? Absolutely not. This is wrong. Amino acids make up proteins. Here we go. Do amino acids make up enzymes? So the Regents loves to do this. We know that the amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So if we were to say this is an amino acid, this is an amino acid, this is an amino acid, then this should have been a protein. It's a building block of protein. An enzyme is a protein. So this is correct. Molecular bases? Molecular bases found in DNA? That's not a starch. So this is wrong. Molecular bases are made of phosphate, sugar, and nitrogenous bases. DNA is made up of nitrogenous bases. Starch is a sugar carbohydrate. It's nothing to do with it. So the best answer is 3. Let's keep going. Okay, this is about equilibrium. Do you remember the word for equilibrium? What life process has to happen to all living things? All living things must be at homeostasis, balanced. It can also be called equilibrium. So, which of these charts shows a steady, constant motion? I mean, think about your life. You could be good, you could get sick, then you feel better. You can get sick again, then you feel better. You can have a fever, then feel better, etc., etc. This one is using body temperature as an example. So whenever you see these kind of diagrams, this is a graph. And if you remember math, we have different quadrants. This will be quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. We work in quadrant 1 in living environment. We don't usually do the negative numbers over here. So we work with quadrant 1. So when you see these lines, this is a y-axis, this is an this question about equilibrium. Equilibrium is this graph right here. This is keeping a steady homeostasis situation. This is the best answer, B, homeostasis. Your body temperature can go up and down, up and down, up and down, but it needs to be at equilibrium. Okay, that's a lot of it's a lot of gibberish there. Okay, human body systems, one of my favorite topics for my students, especially Jordan, giving a shout out to Jordan. He absolutely loves the human body system, and other students too. We dissected the frog here. So let's read the question from the top. Never skip down to the bottom. Always read the top. Base your answer to the following questions in the diagrams below and on your knowledge of biology. The diagrams represent some of the systems that make up the human body. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, always read the questions because they give you valid information. What if you have this amazingly serious test anxiety and you even forget that this is part of the human body system? And you're like, what the heck is that? What the heck is this? You get nervous. So a lot of the clues are in the questions. If not, they're just being straight up and like, hey, this is the human body systems. So let's see. A similarity between these systems is that they all what? They all work together to maintain an stable internal environment. Here's another word that talks about homeostasis. Homeostasis, guys. Sometimes the answer is not as complex as you think. I'm going to definitely write this one. Homeostasis can also be referred to as a stable internal environment, and it can also be equilibrium. Equilibrium. Your body has to work together. The systems have to work together in order for you to stay alive. Your nervous system has to make sure to work with your muscular system. Your digestive system has to take in all the food. This is the stomach, by the way. All the food particles, break it down so that it's absorbed in the small intestines, so that the nutrients can then be pumped into your blood all over your cells, and so that you can function and your brain can function. Everything has to work together. Next, we're getting to some not so complex questions, but I will let you know when it's a high-level question. As a result of their metabolic activities. Now, what is metabolism? Metabolism is all of the biochemical processes that happens in the cell. Again, this could be an animal cell or a plant cell. And in, for example, our animal cells, we're humans, we're not plants, so we have animal cells. The biochemical processes that happen in the cell is cellular respiration, protein synthesis for the living environment. Now, if you were taking a regular biology course or a college level course, we'd be getting into some serious biochemical processes. But for the living environment, cellular respiration, protein synthesis, and for plant cells, photosynthesis. And for other autotrophs, which are cells that make their own food without the presence of the sun, that's called chemosynthesis. Check out my other videos that talk about biochemical processes. So, as a result of their metabolic activities, many organisms produce harmful substances. These substances are eliminated from the process of excretion. So when your body, when your cells make ATP energy, you are also making water, which is H2O. And you're also making a waste product called carbon dioxide, CO2. This has to go. Not necessarily this is just part of the reaction. This has to leave your body. How does it leave your body? Through excretion. How do you excrete CO2? You breathe it out. Right now, breathe in, breathe out. You are breathing out carbon dioxide. Good for you. Let's go to number 7. The process that removes metabolic waste products, you already know, excretion. The primary excretory structure of a paramecium. Do you know what a paramecium is? Or an amoeba? Or a hydra? These are little organisms that you should know what they are. They're one-celled organisms. They don't have a respiratory system, a muscular system, a nervous system. They don't have a brain like we do. We're multicellular. So these organisms are one-celled organisms. And for example, a paramecium would have a cell membrane. They would have DNA in an area. Paramecium are prokaryotic, so they do not have organelles. They do not have a nucleus. They're small. But how? They still have to go through biochemical processes. They still have to make energy for themselves. They still have to intake certain molecules and take out certain molecules. So how do they excrete toxic waste that they produce? They excrete it through the cell membrane. The cell membrane being the outermost layer of the cell, which allows molecules to go in and out of the cell membrane. So that's how one-celled organisms excrete. Now, because it's important for you to understand what they look like, let's take a look. I probably misspelled amoeba. That's okay. It happens. Aren't they so cool? This is an amoeba. And I'm sure that this is a 3D enhancement. This is obviously a real picture of an amoeba. It's a one-celled organism. Let's find a GIF though. Let's make it move. Let's see how it looks. I love GIFs. They're so simple. Let's see. Look at that little guy. Let's see what this one looks like. Oh, that's definitely an amoeba. See that? Oh, it's probably feeding. It's feeding. Super cool, these little guys. Oh, trapped. So let's go back to our questions. Oh, we're making good time here. Number 9. After eating a meal, blood sugar levels are elevated. The body secretes hormones to help. Okay, here we go. Secreting hormones. This is a chemical to help absorb excess sugar into cells and return blood sugar levels to normal. This is an example of regulation. Guess what regulation is also talking about? Homeostasis. Homeostasis. Taking the time to write this with my mouth. Homeostasis. You have to regulate your blood sugar levels. When you eat, your blood sugar levels go up, and then your pancreas secretes a very special hormone that regulates blood sugar levels. Do you know what that is? Insulin. Insulin is a hormone that is secreted from your pancreas. to control blood sugar levels. Very good, guys. 10. As the human red blood cells mature, they lose their nuclei. As a result of this loss, which process would be impossible for mature red blood cells to carry out? Now remember that these questions pertain to understanding how life goes. If you don't have DNA, which is the inside of the nucleus, which is also called a nuclei, you cannot reproduce. Without DNA, cells cannot undergo mitosis, cell division. Why? Because the nucleus controls cell activity. You can't make more cells. You can't make more cells if you are if you're missing your nucleus. So yeah, if there's a cell that loses its DNA, its nuclei, it's going to lose its DNA, it's going to lose its ability to reproduce. Moving on. Which life function is not necessary for individual? Put a star next to this guy. Put a star next to this guy. Come on. Please remember that you do not need to reproduce to stay alive. How many people do we know right now that don't have kids and they're alive? They're perfectly fine. Well, I have some little cousins and nieces, no, not nieces and nephews yet, but we know tons of people in our lives who don't have kids. You do not need to reproduce to live. A species can live an entire life without having children. So basically, reproduction has nothing to do with the survival of organisms. Next. Three human hormones most directly involved in sexual reproduction are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. The three main, and I'm going to be honest, the only sex hormones that you're responsible to know. Any other hormones, maybe like FSH or LH, that you'll bump into on a test, will probably be in a reading comprehension. But I have to remind you that the living environment test is not as advanced as it used to be. But it's still a difficult test, don't get me wrong. It's still a test that you need a lot of biological knowledge, science knowledge. But you need to remember that estrogen is a female sex hormone. Progesterone, female sex hormone. Testosterone, male sex hormone. Estrogen and progesterone levels change and fluctuate, which is why women get a menstrual cycle. Testosterone is how males can make sperm in their testes. These are the three hormones, sex hormones, that you should know. You should also know the hormone insulin. Hormones are not always sexual for the sexual reproduction. Insulin, as we know, is a hormone that regulates blood sugar levels that comes from your pancreas. And hormones communicate with cells. Okay, so let's move on. Here we have a dichotomous key. And these are definitely finch birds. And this is one of your 4 mandated labs that you were supposed to do. If you did not do the 4 labs, you shouldn't be taking the test, because this is an entire section of the test. So here we have a dichotomous key shown below can be used to identify birds W, X, Y, and Z. A dichotomous key is a special system that helps you figure out the names of species by looking at their characteristics and following a map. It's actually kind of fun. So here we have, they want to see if you know if you can find the name for bird X. This is bird X. I really want to change the color of my pen, but it's okay. So let's follow the dichotomous key. You always start from the top and work your way to the bottom until you get one of the names. Okay, so let's see. The beak is relatively long and slender. Nope. The beak is relatively stout and heavy. Yes. So this is a yes. So we're going to see the directions. Go to 2. So we're done with 1. Now to 2. The bottom surface of the lower beak is flat and straight. Nope. Flat and straight would be something like this. We have something else. The bottom surface of the lower beak is curved. Yep, it's curved. So now it says go to 3. So we're done with 2. Now we're at 3. The lower edge of the upper beak has a distinct bend. The lower edge of the upper beak has a distinct bend. Not necessarily. This one has a distinct bend. So it's not this one. The lower edge of the upper beak is mostly flat. The lower edge is mostly flat. Yes. So here's our species, which is choice D. Moving on. Those are dichotomous keys. They're pretty fun, right? I think they're fun. It's like a puzzle. Next. All of the following are true regarding cells except, so this is pertaining to the cell theory. The cell theory states all cells come from pre-existing cells. All cells come from an ancestor cell. All cells have DNA that can be passed on to the next generation. Genetic material. Okay? So let's see what we have here. Do all cells have genetic material? Okay, all of the following are true regarding cells except. So they want you to find the one that's not true for every single cell. Okay. All cells have genetic material? Yes. All cells have DNA. Genetic material is, they're just talking about DNA. All cells have cell walls? Absolutely not. Cell walls are only found in plant cells. So this is definitely a possibility. All cells have a plasma membrane? Yes, they do. All cells can divide to form new cells? Yes, they do. Uh-huh. Okay, so now that we have a question that asks about cells except, now we have one that they want you to answer what is common to all cells. So you have to pick one where all cells have it. This one was except, regarding cells except. One that does not have in common, a feature that is not found in every single cell. This one is asking for a feature that all cells have. So let's see. All cells have a cell wall? No. Only plant cells and some bacterial cells have cell walls. All cells are photosynthetic? Absolutely not. Not all cells photosynthesize. Photosynthesize is taking energy from the sun and converting it into glucose sugar. All cells divide from new cells? Absolutely. That is part of the cell theory. All cells have a nucleus? No. Prokaryotic cells like bacteria, they do not have a nucleus. Their DNA is found in a nucleoid region. Next. Oh, put a star next to this one. You're definitely going to have a question asking about levels of organization. Again, still part of our introduction to living environment, to understanding life and life processes. So they want to ask for cell. I'm sorry, they want to ask for X. What can X be? From here we have the smallest level of organization, which is a cell, to the largest, which is organism. You know that all living things are made up of cells. So when you put cells together, what do you get? You get tissue. What do you get when you put tissue together and in an organized manner? You get an organ. What happens when you put organs together that belong together in a human body system? You get an organ system. And what happens when you put all these organ systems together? You get an organism. Very good. Let's keep going. Again, level of organization. Which sequence of terms is in the correct order from simplest to complex? This is why I am so big on reading the directions. This is asking that on this side, it's supposed to be the smallest, and on this side is supposed to be the largest. Okay? So, let's see. Cells, definitely pretty small. To tissue, organs, organ system. This is definitely a contender. This is definitely good. Tissue to an organism? No. Cells to tissue? Yes. To an organ systems? No. Organs? Nope. So A was our answer. Next, 18. During an experiment, you want to view the nucleus of a cell. How would you most easily view this organelle? Now, in order for you to see, now the way that you would see a cell is with a microscope. You cannot see a cell with the naked eye. The naked eye means just with your eyeballs, just your regular eyes. Nope, you cannot see a cell. No, this is my attempt to draw a cell. So you need a microscope. And when you do see a cell, you can see the cell membrane, the nucleus, cytoplasm. That's it. Moving on. Which structure is best observed under a compound light microscope? Again, subscribe to my channel because I'm going to post a video specifically just about the microscope. That's going to be a pretty short video, probably like a 5-10 minute video. So just follow along with me, and then you can go to those videos and check out the compound microscope. So which structure is best observed using a compound microscope? The best structure is the cell. The virus is too small. The compound microscope doesn't have high enough objective lenses where you can get that close up to see a virus. You can't see DNA, and you cannot see the inner surface of a mitochondria. It's just too small. But you can see the cell. Did you do that cheek cell lab? Were you able to see your cheek cells? Because that's super cool. But that's all you can really see, just the cell. Virus, DNA, mitochondria, that's just way too small. Need a powerful microscope. Okay, moving on. So here we have a cell, and particularly a plant cell. How do you know? It's in the directions. So if it's in the directions, This is why I emphasize read the directions. Don't go straight to the question. Read the directions. It's a plant cell. You know it's a plant cell because it has two layers. It has two outer layers. See that two layer here? Two layers? It has a large central vacuole. And it has what we call chloroplast, labeled B, which is where photosynthesis happens. Which cell structure functions as a storage site for water, waste, and food? D, the vacuole. These large vacuoles contain water, waste, and food. It's like a reserve. That's what a vacuole is. Vacuole. Vacuole. Trying my best here. vacuole. Stores waste, water, and food. Next, moving on. Which organelle is the site of cellular respiration? ATP energy? Goodness gracious, mitochondria. We've discussed this before. Next question. Research has shown that treadmill training increases the number of certain energy-releasing structures in the brain. Energy, ATP, mitochondria better be there, and it is. Mitochondria. The cellular structures referred to in this study are most likely mitochondria. The diagram below represents a cell. This is an animal cell. It's not a plant cell. The vacuoles are super tiny. There's no chloroplast, and there's only one outermost layer called the cell membrane. Which letter indicates the specific structure where hereditary mutations occur? Hereditary always refers to DNA. Mutations is when you have some kind of change in the nitrogenous bases A, T, C, and G. If there's anything that goes wrong with your DNA strand, that if it's an A and it should have been a T, if it's a C and it should have been a G, that is called a mutation. And some kind of protein is going to be made incorrectly with a mutation. So, where is DNA found? It's found in the nucleus. Which one's labeling the nucleus? C. So our answer is C. Be very careful with your answering. Because let's say maybe, you know how 1 could be 2, 2 could be B. Maybe C could have been in this choice over here. But since you associated choice C with label C, just be careful. That's all I'm saying. Another animal cell. Before we answer the question, let's just go ahead and review the cell. This is an animal cell. 4 is cell membrane. Lets molecules in and out of the cell. 3 is the mitochondria. Makes ATP energy. 2 is the vacuole. Stores waste, water, food. 1 is the ribosome, where it synthesizes proteins. Now that we know that and we looked at our cell first, let's go ahead from the top and answer this question. The diagram below represents a cell that produces digestive enzymes. Enzymes are proteins. Proteins that help with a chemical reaction. Which cellular structure would be the most likely location for synthesis of enzymes, synthesis of proteins? The ribosome, which is choice 1, which in this case is choice A. Get it together, guys. Again, the cell. Which structure is responsible for the synthesis? Oh gosh, here it is again. Energy, ATP energy. That's made in the mitochondria, which is choice C. Which structure is responsible for the passage of materials into and out of the cell? The outermost layer is responsible for the passage of materials in and out of the cell. That is choice A. A. It's pointing to the cell membrane. Next, structures in an animal cell are represented in the diagram below. Okay. Which row in the chart correctly identifies the functions of structures A, B, and C? Well, before we even look at this graph, we have to take a look at the cell and what they're labeling. A is the cell membrane, B is the mitochondria, makes ATP energy, C is the ribosome. So let's see. A is a cell membrane, which allows molecules to go in and out of the cell. It removes waste from the cell, and it also communicates with other cells because it has things called protein synthesis. Again, subscribe to my channel because I will have a explanation of cellular cell membrane characteristics. That's going to be a 5-10 minute explanation. The cell membrane does remove waste. The cell membrane does not have information storage. That's the nucleus. The cell membrane does not make proteins. That's the ribosome. The cell membrane does do cell communication. Okay, so our contenders is 1 and 4. Structure B is the mitochondria. Extract energy from nutrients? Yeah. The nutrients being glucose and oxygen. Transports of materials? No. Mitochondria does not transport materials. Storage of waste? Nope, that's the vacuole. Transports of materials? No. And that's there twice. So choice 1 is looking pretty good. So let's see, structure C is a ribosome. It synthesizes proteins. Yep. So our choice is choice 1. For this row is the correct row, and that is our choice. Next. Okay. Here we have something that is so important to remember. Cellular communication and receptor molecules. Receptor molecules are found in the cell membrane of the cells. They communicate with chemicals. These chemicals could be hormones, but they have to fit perfectly in what's called the activation site on the receptor molecule. So let's see what it's asking. Start from the top, always. The diagram below shows how chemical messages produced by one cell is received by the other. So this is cellular communication. If these chemical messages are destroyed, the target cell will. So here's a target cell. If these little guys are destroyed, they're going to lose their shape. They're not going to fit here anymore if they're destroyed. So they will not respond with appropriate actions. Because when cells communicate and they link, the chemicals activate the receptor molecules, the cell is going to start doing a particular job. The nucleus is going to be given instructions on what to do. But if it's wrong and it gets what's called denatured, yeah, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. Next. Organic compounds are used as building blocks for, okay. Do you know what organic molecules are? Organic molecules are found in living things, and they have a carbon-hydrogen backbone. And there are 3 main organic compounds that you must always know they're organic, found in living things. They have carbon and hydrogen in their molecular structures. That's proteins, carbohydrates, which are also known as starches and sugars, and fats, which are also called lipids. Lipids are fats. Lipids. Organic, organic, organic. Living, living, living. Found in living things. Remember these 2 things that I said. Next. Proteins, starch, and DNA. DNA is an organic molecule only found in living things, are similar in that they are organic compounds. DNA is also an organic molecule. Which formula represents an organic compound? Now, when you see chemical formulas, you have to go back to what I said, that organic molecules have both together at the same time in their molecular structure, carbon and hydrogen. Let's see. Does this compound contain both carbon and hydrogen? Let's see. This is magnesium, oxygen, hydrogen. Oh, we got one. But does it have carbon? No. It needs to have carbon and hydrogen together for it to be organic, considered organic. Let's move on to B. This is sodium, chlorine. This is not carbon. This is Cl. This is chlorine. But even let's say you made a mistake and you thought because of nerves, or you just forgot that you thought this was carbon, but it doesn't have hydrogen. So this is not organic. What about here? Does it have carbon? Yes. Does it have hydrogen? Yes. Does it have oxygen? Oh, sorry, I just kept going. It has a carbon-hydrogen backbone. This one is definitely organic. Does this one have carbon? No. Does this one have hydrogen? Yes. But is it organic? No. So our choice is C. Put a star next to this one. But after doing these questions, all the other ones are going to be a piece of cake. 32. Group A and Group B. In the remember, start from the top. Always. Groups A and B in the table below contain molecular formulas of compounds. Okay, I see the compounds. I see you. How would the compounds in these groups be chemically classified? Okay, let's start one by one. Choice A says Group A is inorganic. Inorganic means it does not have a carbon and hydrogen backbone. But inorganic substances are found in living things, but they are not made solely in living things. So let's see. Group A is inorganic? No. Group A is organic because it has C, carbon, and hydrogen. So it's not choice A. B. Group A is organic? Yes. Group B is inorganic? Let's see. Nope. This does not have carbon, does not have hydrogen, so this is inorganic. Does have hydrogen, but doesn't have carbon, so this Group B is inorganic. So B is a contender. Group A is monosaccharide. Oh, this has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. So our best choice is choice B. Moving on. Which class of molecules is responsible for speeding up a chemical reaction? A catalyst, which is also known as an enzyme. Enzymes are made of protein. Proteins are broken down and made up of amino acids. I promise, ladies and gentlemen, that I will have better quality videos once I get my technology on point and I connect my digital pen to everything. Moving on. Okay, here we have a picture of some kind of reaction happening. Again, take it from the top. The diagram below represents a series of reactions that can occur in an organism. Okay, here we go. Original molecule. So we have a molecule here. We have two molecules, molecule 1 and molecule 2. A biological catalyst, it's an enzyme. Remember that we said that a catalyst is an enzyme. The diagram, okay, let's keep going. So now the molecule fused together. So is this digestion? If this is step 1 and this is step 2, you started with 2 and then you end with 1. This made something brand new. This is not the same as this. This synthesized. This diagram best illustrates the relationship between enzymes and synthesis. Not amino acid and glucose, not antigens and immunity, not ribosomes and sugar. After a certain point, you start realizing how ridiculous things are in terms of the multiple choice. And you're like, why would they even insult my intelligence by putting these silly answers and think that I'll fall for it? Like, everything just becomes so much easier. All right, moving on. Number 35. Compound X increases the rate of the reaction shown below. Compound X is most likely, at this point, guys, you should know that's an enzyme. Moving on. Okay, now we're getting to the questions on what affects enzyme reaction rates. In order for you to have a functioning cell, a functioning body, living, you have to have the right pH and the right temperature in your body so that your enzymes can do their job and work well in the environment that they're in. So here we have, again, started from the top. The graph below, this graph right here, represents the effect of pH on 3 different enzymes at normal body temperature. So let's read. Remember that this, from a normal graph, this being the y-axis, this being the x-axis, this being 0, this being negative, negative, this is quadrant 1. This is always working. Living environment works with quadrant 1. Okay, so this is definitely 3 different enzymes. These are 3 different enzymes, and they work in different settings. When you're talking about enzyme reactions, the top part of these hills is where it works at its best, optimal. The graph illustrates that enzymes 1, 2, and 3, and here you have a key that tells you by its patterns, let me clean this up a little bit for you. So this is a key to let you know which one's which. The graph illustrates that enzymes 1, 2, and 3 are not affected by pH. Of course they are. If the pH is different, they're going to work in different optimal levels, best levels, because they're different enzymes that work in different pHs. This is the best answer. Work best at different pH levels. Enzyme 1 works best at around 4. Enzyme 2 works best at around 7. Enzyme 3 works best at around 11. So they work best at different pH levels. pH level is a scale that tells you if something's an acid or acidic or basic, alkaline. This examples are baking soda. This example is hydrochloric acid in your stomach. Moving on. We're almost at the end. Okay, here we have a high-level question. Always start from the top. Take your time, annotate. Base your answer to the following question on the information and graph below and on your knowledge of biology. So, let's keep going. The pH of the internal environment of a lysosome, which is an organelle that contains enzymes, is approximately 4.5. This is acidic. If we go back to the, did I erase it? Oh, the pH scale that I made, it falls under here, so it's on the acidic side. While the pH of the surrounding cytoplasm is approximately 7, that's neutral. That's how our water should be, our blood. We should work at a neutral 7. Not too acidic, not too basic. The average pH of a human stomach, it should be acidic, during digestion is approximately 2.5. Wow, that is very acidic. Very. To break down and digest your food. While the average pH of the small intestine during digestion is about 8. This is very basic. You see how things change? The graph below shows how pH affects the enzyme activity of 4 different enzymes, A, B, and C, and D. So we have A, B, C, and D, 4 different enzymes that work in 4 different pH scales. First question, which enzyme functions best in a pH environment most similar to that of a human stomach enzyme? Human stomach is acidic around here. A would be the best answer. The diagram below, let's see. Oh, we're done. We're done with this question. Moving on. The diagram below represents a model of a biological process that occurs in humans at a normal body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Increasing body temperature of 40 degrees Celsius will interfere most directly with the rate of function of structure A. This is the enzyme. If you change that temperature, you are going to change the structure of the enzyme. You're going to denature it. You're going to mess it up. You cannot change the temperature of where the enzyme is supposed to work. It's supposed to work as optimum, its best. Moving on. Oh, pepsin, trypsin, enzymes. Neither enzyme works at pH. So let's look at the numbers and see where out of these numbers does this enzyme not work, not even a little bit. It works a little here. Pepsin works a little here. It definitely works its best here. Trypsin works here, works at its best, dying out but still working. Neither enzymes work at pH 1. Pepsin works at pH 1. pH 5, they both work at pH 5. Not that well, but they work. 3, pepsin works at 3. 13 is our answer. Nothing works at 13 because the graph lines are not here. It stops here. Nothing works beyond that point. Moving on. Pepsin works best in which type of environment? Well, if you know the pH scale, pepsin is in the acidic side, as I said before. 0 to 7 is acidic. So pepsin works best. Pepsin works best at the pH that is acidic only, from 0 to 5.7, 5.6. Acidic only. Moving on. More receptor molecules. You might be asked to draw something like this. It's either going to be a receptor molecule or an enzyme. We're reaching the end, guys. Molecule A and molecule B most likely represent a receptor and a hormone. Lock and key. It fits perfectly. If this were a drawing, let's say you didn't have this at all whatsoever, and you just had this as a receptor molecule, they can ask you, draw a hormone that will react with this receptor molecule, and you would draw the perfect triangle that would fit, and shade it in if you want to. You don't have to shade it in. That would fit perfectly this receptor molecule. So this is the best answer. 42. An energy-rich organic compound needed by organisms is, so this is also understanding the importance of organic compounds in living things. Glucose, which is a carbohydrate, which is a sugar, is what is an energy-rich organic compound for organisms. Moving on. Okay. You have to remember the structures of the 3 organic molecules. You have your carbohydrate sugar, your protein, and your lipid fats. This particular number only has carbohydrates and a protein. This might be a lipid, but I'm not a biochemist, so I don't want to say that this is a lipid, but it kind of looks like one. So let's see what it's asking for. Which structural formulas represent carbohydrate molecules? A carbohydrate sugar always has this ring shape. So when you see this ring shape, that is a sugar, carbohydrate sugar. Very, very obvious. The best answer for this is choice 1 and 5. 1 and 5, because they're both carbohydrate sugars. Next. Base your answer to the following question on the diagram below, which represents stages in the digestion of starch, a carbohydrate, sugar, and on your knowledge of biology. Okay, so this starts off like this as a whole, and then it breaks into 2. This is digestion because you started with a molecule and then you ended with 2. Simple. You went from a complex molecule to a simple molecule. The products would most likely contain, these would most likely be a simple sugar. And X, if you were asked what was X, it's an enzyme. Here's the activation site. Enzymes help with chemical reactions. Moving on. Start from the top. Base your answer to the following question on the list of 3 equations below. Select the equation that is most likely associated with that statement. No problem. High-level question here. This equation represents a process that results in the formation of amino acids. What make up amino acids? Proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Proteins is one of the organic molecules found in living things. Oh, I don't know why I put a G there. Let me just take out that G. Protein. Now, a protein has nitrogen in it. Has nitrogen. So let's just go one by one and put a big X to compounds that you don't see nitrogen. N, the letter N. This does not have N at all. Neither does this. I see no nitrogen here. Let's see here. Here's a nitrogen. There's a nitrogen. 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 This one's looking good. Let's see down here. Nope. No nitrogen here. No nitrogen here. No nitrogen here. So it is choice 2. N for protein nitrogen. All right. We are reaching our end. This is our last question, couple of questions. Liposuction, lipids, fats is the removal of stored fat from the human body. Which type, ladies and gentlemen, do not get liposuction? Just work it out. Work it out. You can do it. What type of molecule is most directly involved in this process? A lipid. What do lipids look like? This guy right here. So when you see a structure with this ladder kind of, it looks like a ladder, these long chains, that is a lipid, and they will not change the characteristic in a question of it being a lipid. Enzymes are a type of protein. You know this already. Amino acids are the building blocks of which class of macromolecules? Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids. The diagram below represents a process that occurs in organisms. Okay, so you have a complex molecule broken down into a simpler molecule. And they even make like a large block turned into a small block. Which row in the chart indicates what A and B in the boxes could represent? Can A be starch and B be proteins? No, because proteins are made up of amino acids, not starch. Starch is not made of proteins. Starch is made up of sugars. Starch, can A be starch and B be amino acids? No, because amino acids don't make up starch. Amino acids make up proteins. This is wrong. Can A be proteins and B be amino acids? Yes. Because the big one is the protein and the little one is amino acids, because amino acids make up proteins. Proteins are not simple sugars. Guys, we are done. Congrats. I am going to post some more videos. I'm going to try my best. The fact that your exam is in the afternoon for the June 18th, Tuesday, 2019, you are so lucky. Rest. Watch as many videos as you can now and tomorrow. But once 10 o'clock hits in New York City, New York State, go to bed and get 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Wake up refreshed. Eat an amazing breakfast. Avoid potatoes. This is Miss Taveras. I've been doing this for 12 years. Good luck, and I will see you in another video very shortly.